Hello everyone and welcome back. This is BJ with Reef Therapy. I appreciate you guys coming back for the third week. If you like my videos, please share it with your friends, other reef friends, people who like fish tanks, people who like corals, people who like animals in general, all that stuff. So today I was going to talk about tank maintenance and my cleanup crew a little bit. I told you guys we were going to talk about acclimation, but I didn't make it out to the fish store to buy a new coral to show you guys what it's like to acclimate it, what I do. So I'm going to save that for another video. I apologize if you were looking forward to it, but my local fish store had this really nice tabling acro. I actually posted a picture of it on my Instagram. I asked them to frag me a piece, so when I go pick that up, I'll make that acclimation video for you guys. My tank is 112 gallons with the rock and the water displacement and all that. It's about 100 gallons. I figured that out just based off of when I dose and what the levels are after I dose, and the ratios between the two, and figured it to be about 100 gallons or so. I want to make sure that when I'm maintaining my tank, I do it on a regular basis. Stability is number one key factor for a healthy, thriving reef tank. You need to make sure that your tank is stable at all times. So that's kind of the purpose of automation, dosing pumps, systems like the Apex or the Reef Keeper, or any of the other ones that are out there. They're all set there to make our lives a little bit easier and to help keep our tanks stable. I do my water changes every Sunday, and I make sure I've always done about 10 gallons. Sometimes I'll do more, sometimes I honestly never do less. It's at least 10 gallons, sometimes more. But I make sure that I do it every Sunday no matter what. This week I'm feeling a little under the weather. I do apologize if you hear me coughing a little bit. I'll try and cut that out. But if it's mid-sentence, I don't have really great editing tools, I'm not gonna lie. So I apologize to begin with. Anyways, so I make sure I do this every Sunday. I haven't had problems in the display tank with algae in a long time, so that's definitely been a blessing. Knock on wood again. Thank you. Anyways, right now, if you notice over there, I got an anemone in anemone jail. I found him cruising up toward my acropora earlier, so I picked him out really quick. Couldn't have that happen. I don't want him to kill all the acropora, so that's the risk you take when you have anemones in a mixed reef like this. One day they're probably going to start walking, and you got to watch out for it. We're probably going to get into my process of water change, where I keep my RO unit stored. I live in a excuse me. I live in a townhouse, so space is a little limited. So my setup isn't really ideal, but it does work. It's functional. Okay, to begin this, I'm just going to go through what's happening in this video. I got all my things ready for tank maintenance. Got buckets, siphon, turkey baster, razor blades, all that stuff. I apologize if the audio is different. I'm recording with an app on my iPhone just to work with some of the video that I took. Anyways, to start off with, I'm just going to go ahead and scrape the glass down of these little specks of algae that seem to grow everywhere. They're usually not too noticeable, but I want to take care of them every time I begin cleaning the tank. So I just go through any one that I see, just scrape it off. Usually the mag float, I don't have a razor on it, and it doesn't clean that off very well. So I just go around every week and I do it. You can also clean off that coralline algae if you don't like the way it looks. I usually do, but there are certain places that I do scrape that algae away, as I already said earlier. But I usually leave it around the edges, and I kind of have to leave it at the bottom because I can't reach it. Unfortunately, my tank is 2 feet deep, so I just have to deal with it where it's at. But I do try and scrape it away enough to the point where I can see those corals on the sand bed, but that's about as good as it goes. A two-step ladder has really saved my life in this. I used to stand on a dining room chair, and of course that didn't last very long. Fiance didn't like that so much when it got wet, and don't want to ruin the upholstery, I guess. So a two-step ladder is perfect for all this. Right now, going through with that turkey baster, you really want to get into these rocks and blast away all this dust and gunky stuff. So, I mean, most of this is probably sand, but you never know. You never know what's really hiding under that, and you want to get in there pretty deep. Don't let any of that sit in there and just rot away or whatever else, irritate the corals. They'll really appreciate you for it. This doesn't hurt them in any way, and I really feel like it helps them more than anything. Just clear them all out. They'll be more happy for it. They'll open bigger for you, I bet. And it's just nice. And it gets all those nasty particles back out into the water. And when that happens, you can siphon it out as best as possible. So now all those particles are out in the air. They're not in the air, but the water, floating around. So what I'll do with my siphon is I'll just go in, I'll get it going, and if I see any big chunks of anything, I'll try and hunt them down and get them sucked out. Other than that, I really just take out water. You wanna have a special focus on the sand bed though. The sand bed is very important to keep clean and keep healthy. If you're not running a deep sand bed, then this is really the advice for you. My sand bed's pretty shallow. It's not even an inch deep, I would say. So I make sure to really, as you can see in the video, I hope anyways, as you can see, it's the basic method. I pull up sand, it goes about halfway up the tube, and then I let it drop down. So this clears out all the gunk that's inside, or that's hiding in that sand, and it leaves the sand behind. So, unless you're trying to take that sand out, there's no reason to waste your money because you siphon down all your sand over time. There's no way that you can save all of it, but at least you'll save most of it. The most important thing, though, is really to clean that sand bed out. It traps all sorts of nasty stuff, detritus, food, everything. It's really gross. I can see the glass underneath my fish tank. I could see underneath the sand through it. And it used to be just this nasty black gunk under there. And once I finally realized that and I cleaned it out, the tank thanked me for it, basically. It's been so much better. It's been so much healthier. You should not neglect the sand bed at all. And honestly, if you want to have a nice, white, clean-looking sand bed, you have to make sure you maintain it on a weekly basis. Just make sure you get all over the place. I don't worry about doing it in sections every week. I don't have that much sand, so I'm not concerned about pockets of nasty gases or anything like that being released. I just, wherever I feel like needs it, gets it, and then I try to get more places next week, or I'll try and get it all that week, whatever. I'll go through this, and I usually do about 10 gallons a week. I'm only doing 5 this week just to, just for this video, to make a quick demo. I've been doing that much ever since I set up this tank. It's always worked for me to do 10 gallons a week. Over, let's say, give or take 100 gallons, 10 gallons coming out of it, 10%. That's not really much of a water change. It's not really much to change anything, honestly. But for whatever reason, it's always worked out. I do clean out the sand bed pretty well, so I guess, I shouldn't complain too much, or I shouldn't, worry about it too much. But the point is, your tank needs regular maintenance. It needs that stability. You need to clean out the stuff that will cause problems before they do cause problems. Here's a look at the water change bucket. That's basically all the gunk that I pulled out. Some of it's sand, a lot of it's gunk. That's what you're looking for. You want to get that junk out. And then, of course, the sand bed, looks like this. It's nice and clean, white, looks good, no issues, no problems. Here we have my RODI unit. It's not an ideal setup, but I live in a townhouse again, so I gotta make do with the space that I got. I have a 6-stage RODI unit. I got the membrane, of course, the 3 pre-filters before that, and then 2 DI cartridges and the TDS meter. So the TDS meter is my most recent purchase, and you absolutely, if you're gonna have an RODI unit, in order to make sure it's working properly, you need to have a TDS meter. You should have a pressure gauge too. I don't, but the TDS meter always shows 0 TDS, so that's total dissolved solids, so I have no complaints there. For whatever reason, I can't get it to stick to anything. There is adhesive on the back, but it just keeps falling off, so I just kind of let it hang there. I don't have a place to permanently install this, so I hook it up to the kitchen sink. Usually every night before I go to bed, or when I'm trying to make water before I go to bed, I'll hook it up to the sink and turn it on and just let it go overnight. I usually don't have any problems with that. There were a couple mornings when I woke up to a flooded kitchen, but you know, I usually can estimate how long it's gonna take, and I'm not leaving it unsupervised for too long. Everything that comes out of the RODI unit goes into this 20-gallon trash can. I fill it up maybe once, twice a week. I like to always have some extra water on hand for anything, in case anything happens. Alright, let's get on to the water mixing. It's an Ocean Reef crystal buckets. I started using these, of course, once I used the whole bucket of salt. But I like them a lot because these little ridges here are how much water I take out of the tank. Is, you know, how much water, of course, I mix up and put back in. It makes it very easy because I can see those ridges through the inside of the bucket. That way, every single time I do a water change, I get approximately the same amount of water taken out, and I put approximately the same amount in. It makes it very easy, very simple. My water changes generally take about half hour, just with all the cleaning and all that stuff all together. It's very quick, especially because I got this basically down pat. So instead of using like a bucket or something to keep the water out, I have one of these really nice things here, specimen containers. This one's perfect for this. I know exactly 8.5 scoops fills this bucket up right to that line that I want it to. So, you know, I just go to town, pretty much. Always put the water in your buckets first, and then add the salt. So, get the water in there. You never want to put the salt in first and then mix in the water, because you're going to have an extremely high concentration solution then, and that's not what you want. The elements and all the things that are inside the salt will actually be so super concentrated and they can possibly precipitate out. You don't want a super high concentration solution to begin with, so you want to slowly add the salt to the water to avoid any problems with it. Reef crystals, I noticed, I'm going to assume 5 gallons estimated here, because I think the bucket has to be all the way full for 5 gallons. I haven't actually sat there and measured it out, but I believe it's 2.5 cups of reef crystals to make specific gravity of 1.026. It usually works out for me like that. I find that reef crystals really isn't as exact as Coral Pro was. If you didn't notice, this is a Coral Pro bucket. I recently switched back to reef crystals from using that. I didn't really notice much of a difference, honestly, from the two. Reef crystals is a little bit cheaper, so, you know, there it is. But I will say that Coral Pro mixed a lot easier, and it mixed a lot clearer. Reef crystals is a little bit cloudy to begin with, and you know, I don't know exactly what that is, but you know, Coral Pro was exactly 2 cups per this level that I fill up here. Reef crystals is about 2.5. There's a little bit of uncertainty there. No, I don't really, that slows down the water change process a little bit, but it's manageable. So, you know, we do what we can. So when I'm doing this, I'll just use my arm, stick it in the bottom of the bucket, Make sure I'm swirling, and very, very slowly but steadily, just, you know, shake the salt in there, making sure to stir it all up. I'm already about halfway through this. I don't like to spend a lot of time doing this. I've never felt it was necessary. Some people might tell you different. But there you go. When I'm mixing this too, my hand is all the way at the bottom of the bucket, and my fingers are basically dragging on the bottom. I want to make sure none of that salt is sitting down there and not dissolving. Really want to make sure it gets in there and gets mixed up. Don't want it to sit. So I mix it for a little bit. Looks good. Excuse me. And you definitely got to have one of these. A refractometer, a refractometer, whatever you want to call it. I prefer these much more than the hydrometers. You know, there's a debate about that, but I really think these are much more accurate. If you make sure you get one that's calibrated for salt water and not the ones that are calibrated for like beer and stuff like that, I don't even know what they are, but and make sure that you calibrate it before you use it. Make sure you get the calibration solution. You can use RODI water, but it's best to calibrate it with a solution that matches what you're measuring for the most accuracy. You know, we spend so much time worrying about our tanks and stuff like that. We might as well just spend $10 on the calibration solution and never have to worry about it ever again. You only need a couple drops of it, and it comes in a big enough bottle to last you years. So, you know, it's not that bad of an investment. Might as well. So I just dunk the lens in the water. Make sure it's make sure the water is covering the lens completely. There's no bubbles or anything underneath it, which is what you want. And then just make sure you hold it up to the light. And that is basically perfect. Right where I wanted it. So you want to make sure you're doing this in a well-lit room or against sunlight. It's dark out right now, so you know, I'm not gonna stand in the window, obviously. I got every light on in the kitchen, so this works out. You have to be able to see that line. It's a little difficult, but this thing is definitely the way to go whenever you're mixing up salt. So when you're mixing up salt, you need to pay attention to the manufacturer recommendations. Depending on temperature and all that, the salinity levels can change. So it is really important to follow those directions. I'm not smart enough to get into all the science behind that, but you know, the closer you follow the recommendations, the better you're off you're going to be. Reef Crystals mixes up pretty high in alkalinity at first. Right now, if I was to test this, it's probably going to come out between like 12 and 13 DKH. I keep my tank right at 8, so that's a lot higher than what I want it to be. My tank is also 112 gallons with the rock displacement of the water. It's about 100 gallons based off of, you know, how much I dose and what the results are after dosing. I'm gonna estimate about 100 gallons. So 5 gallons out of 100 gallons really isn't much to knock off the levels at all. It's really honestly not much to do anything at all. I should be doing larger water changes, but this is what it's always worked out for me. So I'm not too concerned about just adding it into the tank right now as it is, as long as that salt's all the way dissolved and it feels like it's at a pretty good temperature. I'm okay with it, but I will say that I won't dump it into the display tank just because that's where all the corals are. This variance in DKH from what the tank is versus what the bucket is enough of a jump that I would be concerned about the more fragile or what's the word? Sensitive corals like my Acropora. I don't want to be dumping this water that's really high DKH on top of them. I just don't want to take that chance. Even like the anemones and things like that, I don't want to take the chance of them getting a shock of super high DKH water being dumped on their heads. So what I do is I dump it into the sump, and as I empty the bucket, I'll turn on the return pump and it'll slowly push it back into the display tank. Water continuously circulates and it knocks down that DKH rather quickly. I've tested immediately before and immediately after mixing the water in with the tank, and I've never seen any problems, nothing to worry about at all. So depending on the size of your water change though, you do need to watch that. If you're noticing some problems after a water change, test your newly mixed water and test your old water. See what kind of differences they are. You might be having a big jump in your measurements. It's definitely something to consider. Again though, I don't do much every week to the point where I'm really concerned about it, but you should pay attention to it if you do a good portion of your water volume. Okay, so this is mixed up, ready to go. Okay, I put that water into the sump. Everything's going again. Pumps are going again. Everything looks fine. Everything looks happy. So move on from that whole thing. I know it took a long time, but talk about the cleanup crew just a little bit. I used to have a fairly large cleanup crew, consisted of a bunch of different kinds of snails and hermit crabs. I have blue leg hermit crabs. That was the biggest mistake I've ever made in terms of cleanup crew. I will never put blue leg hermit crabs back in here ever again. I had 10. They quickly killed off all of my snails without, or I don't know, 75% of my snails without taking their new shells. And then they killed off each other. Excuse me. I will never do that ever again. Ever. Right now, I think I have maybe 10 snails in here. 2 pretty good sized golf ball sized snails and some smaller ones. Other than that, there's one on the back wall here. And one on the back wall there. And a couple of the bigger guys are lost in there somewhere. I've noticed I've had some of the, they're like the snails, they're flatter snails with the really small shells on them. I think they're like Stomanella snails or something like that. I don't remember. I've noticed those guys come out at night and they multiply rather quickly. They're a pretty good cleanup crew. I came in as a hitchhiker on something. On a frag, I guess I got from somebody. I didn't dip it well enough. Who knows? That'll be something to talk about for the acclimation video. But it's actually a good hitchhiker to have. They get into all kinds of crevices. They actually get into the rocks, so that's good. But my cleanup crew really is not that big. I'm the biggest part of the cleanup crew, I think. Just making sure to watch my feedings and making sure I clean the tank every week. I think that's pretty much it for this week's video. I did tell you guys that I had a pretty cool announcement to tell you guys at the end. So I'm part of the Cleveland Saltwater Enthusiasts Association, and we had our frag swap in October of this year. So why does that matter to you guys? Well, we had some really great vendors there. Some local guys like Sean Brown and Frost, some coral vendors. We had some big names like Jason Fox. He was there selling some awesome corals, and we had a bunch of other people there too. It was really a great time. But one vendor there was he wasn't selling any kind of fish or corals. He was selling custom-made acrylic items, things like acclimation boxes, Kato reactors, algae scrubbers, and frac racks. This vendor is Reef Tech Customs. I'll leave their website down in the description. But basically, they donated one of their frag racks to our raffle table, and this thing was easily one of the most popular items on the raffle table. I wanted this thing for myself. I was sitting there trying to upsell it to people, get people interested, but honestly, the item spoke for itself. It was very high quality, well constructed, well thought through. the thing was, it was the best frag rack I've seen. I mean, yeah, it's a frag rack. How good can it get? But I just really liked it. It was high quality. It felt like a good item. So I contacted him last night to see if I can buy one from him. Of course, he said yes, so I think I'm going to get one. And then it really occurred to me, like, hey, it would be kind of cool, get people more involved and, you know, interested, and give you guys a chance to win something if we had a raffle for a frag rack. So let me know if you're interested and if you think you would participate. There's probably going to be a $5 entry fee for it, but, you know, $5 to win a nice high-quality item, that's not too bad. So I can, since it's not a live item or anything like that, there shouldn't be any issues with me shipping it to you, so it doesn't really, as long as you're in the United States, there probably won't be much of an issue with that. So definitely just let me know in the comments. I know I'm definitely going to get one for myself, but, you know, if you think it's something you might want to do, let me know so I could buy 2 of them. I think you guys are really going to like it. I'm also going to do a review video on it, of course, when I get one. So you'll have a chance to see it, and it'll probably be in the acclimation video as well for the corals. It's pretty cool. It's pretty nice. My blonde nasotang showing off for you guys a little bit. So let me know what you think. I appreciate you guys coming back out this week. If you enjoyed the video, please share it with your friends. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Hopefully I didn't miss anything. I don't think I did. But it's been a long video, my longest video yet, so I think it's time to call it quits. And yeah, thanks again. I'll see you guys next week.